The birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author. Roland Barthes. It didn't take long for Akaashi to realize that university theater wasn't particularly theatrical. At least, not in the way people assumed. There were no dramatic monologues whispered under moonlight. No brooding actors reading poetry backstage. No tortured geniuses dramatically storming off in creative agony. No. Blocking rehearsal looked more like a barely functioning fever dream. Kuru from stage crew was lying fully sprawled across the stage floor, tangled in an extension cord, muttering darkly about a fire hazard that may or may not have, mildly, occurred last semester. Oikawa, directing with the flair of someone who absolutely knew how good his jawline looked in low lighting, had wrapped a long, flowy scarf around his shoulders that he definitely hadn't arrived wearing. It matched nothing. He was clearly thriving. Iwa-chan, I need the lighting cue at exactly 2 beats after the line drop, or the emotional payoff evaporates. I swear to God, Toru. Iwaizumi muttered from behind his clipboard. If you say, emotional payoff, one more time, I'm putting a fog machine under your bed. Oh, promise. Oikawa purred without missing a beat. You're exhausting. I'm chaos incarnate, darling. You signed the waiver, Oikawa said with a wink. Iwaizumi muttered something deeply unprintable under his breath and stalked off toward the tech booth, but not before Oikawa smirked behind his scarf like he'd just won a game only he was playing. Meanwhile, someone was sobbing in the hallway about spotlight cues not being emotionally resonant enough, and someone else had duct-taped a fake sword to a broomstick and was now swinging it around, yelling, "Behold, Excalibur 2.0. As though they were auditioning for a low-budget anime adaptation. And through it all, Akaashi sat in the third row, calm as ever, script in hand, pencil poised. Watching. Not participating. Definitely judging. He flipped through the script pages with precision. Made notations in the margins. Crossed out half-baked ad-libs. Circled dialogue where the emotional tension dipped. Then, grudgingly, underlined a few of Bakudo's lines, the ones that somehow, inexplicably, worked. It wasn't fair, really. Bakudo had a gift. That much was clear. What was harder to tolerate was that he knew it. And carried himself like someone who had never been told no, in a way that actually landed. The cast was midway through the big confrontation scene, a critical midpoint in the story. A confrontation between the two leads. Loyalty, betrayal, grief. Akaashi had written it with deliberate restraint. A hush between the words. A silence that said more than dialogue ever could. Bakudo was currently yelling through it. I don't need your forgiveness. I need you to see me. Not the soldier. Not the son. Me. Akaashi twitched slightly. Not because the line was bad. But because it wasn't the line. Oikawa called casually, still flipping through his notes. Let's take that again. Bakudo, less full volume breakdown, more wounded resolve. Akaashi, you're in. Other lead. Let's go. Akaashi stood. Slowly. Like he was heading toward a dentist appointment. He walked across the stage, footsteps quiet but deliberate. Bakudo turned to face him, grin already forming, that same grin from yesterday. The one that always felt like an open door into a burning room. You ready, Kaashi? Don't call me that. Got it. Kaashi. Akaashi fixed him with a glare. Okay. Tough room. Oikawa waved them into place. And, action. Akaashi began, voice low and composed. You ask for something I can't give. You demand truth, but every word you speak is a performance. Bakudo stepped forward. Because the truth hurts, and you. Akaashi cut in, sharper now. Don't get to hide behind volume when you're afraid of silence. The room paused. Even Bakudo faltered. For half a second. Then he smiled again, this time, slower. Like he felt it. Again. No. Let's talk about what you're doing. Oikawa let out a suffering groan. God, here we go. Someone get me a drink. Or a therapy dog. I'm not your therapy dog. Iwaizumi called without looking up. You could be. Oikawa shot back with a grin. I will throw a sandbag at you. Promises. 10 minutes later, Bakudo and Akaashi were sitting on a worn-out prop bench in the hallway. A dusty tragedy mask was nailed crookedly to the wall above them. The fluorescent lighting buzzed faintly, like it wanted to escape the building. Bakudo stretched his arms behind his head like this was just another Tuesday. Akaashi looked like he was actively trying to suppress the urge to vanish into the floor. You improvised half the scene. Akaashi said, arms folded. I elevated the material. You added a soliloquy about being forged in fire and ended the scene yelling, I will not be broken. That's not elevating, that's melodrama. That's passion. I was in the moment. You turned a quiet grief arc into a budget war epic. Bakudo leaned in, eyes glinting. So what's the right way to grieve, huh? Should I whisper my pain into a candle? Recite my sorrow into a sunset? It's about restraint. Akaashi snapped. It's about tension. It's about earned emotion, not just yelling your trauma like a power ballad. Sometimes, people feel so much, they have to scream. Akaashi opened his mouth, closed it, then looked away. You're saying the intention matters more than the text. Yes, but I wrote the text for the intention. The words are the intention. Bakudo shrugged. Have you ever heard of Barthes? Akaashi blinked. Roland Barthes. The death of the author. Bakudo grinned. Boom. You probably saw that on a Tumblr post in 2014. Not the point. Barthes said once a work is created, it doesn't belong to the author anymore, that it's up to interpretation. Exactly. You wrote the scene, but once it's on stage, it's ours to live. Feel. Break open. And yet, you performed it like you were possessed by a ghost who thinks he's on Broadway. A talented ghost. A loud ghost. When rehearsal finally ended, most of the cast filtered out for food and drinks, laughter echoing down the hallway. Someone yelled about karaoke. Someone else was trying to carry a flat-screen TV down the stairs. Oikawa and Iwaizumi lingered near the back of the theater, arguing about lighting angles in increasingly flirtatious tones. Back in the hallway, Akaashi remained seated, folding his script, marking a few final notes. Bakudo joined him again, quieter this time. Less fire. More warmth. You really hate when people mess with your writing. I hate when they misunderstand it. And what if I told you I didn't misunderstand? That I just felt it, differently. Akaashi looked at him, not quite guarded, but not open either. I suppose that's the point of theater. Dialogue. Exchange. The same words, worn differently depending on who wears them. Bakudo smiled. Maybe we're not that different, Kaashi. Akaashi side-eyed him. I said don't call me that. You didn't say please. A long sigh. You're exhausting. And you're fascinating. Part 3 coming soon.